While there are 3 bids being considered for the John Fairfax Group, the odds-on favourite would appear to be Terang. But the Kerry Packer Conrad Black offer has also aroused the greatest opposition, particularly from Fairfax journalists. Joining us now, the Sydney Morning Herald's communications writer Tom Burton, the Melbourne Age's economics editor Ken Davidson, and Alan Kennedy from the Friends of Fairfax. Gentlemen, welcome. Tom, would you like to open the batting?
Yes, Mr. Packer, you've had a pretty impressive record in TV and magazines. You've brought a lot of new ideas, a lot of innovation. What sort of new ideas would you like to bring to Fairfax?
Well, I mean, I've just got through telling you that I'm not going to be in a position to bring anything to Fairfax beyond the equity of 15%. I'm not going to be on the board of Fairfax, and I'm not going to run Fairfax.
But you must, personally, you've got a lot of ideas. You've worked in media for a long time. What do you think of the Fairfax newspapers?
Well, as I say, I'm not going to have an effect on them. Now, if you want to ask me about what I feel about newspapers, how I run my business, I'm quite happy to answer those questions.
Well, that's the question I was asking. As the person who's going to be a major shareholder in the company, what are your views about the Fairfax
I don't
newspapers?
have any views about Fairfax as a major shareholder, because I'm not a major shareholder.
As a person who's been in the media for many years, what are your views about the Fairfax papers?
I think they're great traditions. I don't think they're necessarily being well enough served at this moment in time by some of the things that are happening there. But I think they have a great tradition and a great reputation, and I think they will go on, as long as they're properly nurtured and looked after, to even more greatness.
And how could we make them better?
Well, we could obey the AJO Code of Ethics to start with, couldn't we?
You think it's been breached?
I'm sure it's been breached.
Have you got examples of that? Or
Well, why don't you read just the first section of it? You want one?
Yeah, I've read it often. What are you referring to?
Well, why don't you read that out so everybody can make their own decision? There's the AJO Code of Ethics.
Yeah, I've read it often.
Why don't you read it to the public, because they've never heard it? Just the first.
Well, Mr. Packer, what's the point you're making there?
My point is that the way this has been handled, the big lie, and I notice we're not going to get it read, the big lie which is being put forward by the Fairfax organisation, that I am going to control it, is in direct contravention with the AJA Code of Ethics. I am not going to control Fairfax's. Please tell me how I am. If you believe it, tell me how.
Where's the big lie being put? Can you put some examples in Fairfax copy and Fairfax cover of this issue?
Well, I noticed a picture in the paper the other day with posters of The Age. What right have you, the Friends of Fairfax, got to use posters of The Age? I mean, this is an official journal of John Fairfax.
I don't really follow the point. I asked you for examples where Fairfax papers...
There is a paper, there is a picture in yesterday's paper or today's paper where you are all having a meeting, putting forward a point of view which is completely and absolutely dishonest. In that painting, in that picture, there are posters of John Fairfax and so on. Now, will you read the thing?
Could I ask you...
No, you've all asked me something.
Well, perhaps I could get Jana to read it too, program. I'm more than happy to read it. I've read it 1,000 times.
But why don't you read it out so the public can hear it?
Let's establish what point we're making, Mr. Packer. You call it the big lie. You believe that the Fairfax press is lying about your interests in the Terang bid.
I believe Fairfax press is lying when it tries to present, which it constantly does, the bid of Terang as being my bid and that I will control it.
All right, now, well, let's move on. Alan...
Who is the controller of Terang?
Will you read that out? Which you're very reluctant to do. Now, this is your ethics.
I'm more than happy to read it. All members of the Australian Journalists Association are pledged to stand by their fellow members in observing and enforcing the AJ Code of Ethics.
No, point 1.
Well, it goes on and on.
No, just point 1. It's got 1 there beside it.
We shall be scrupulous in reporting the news. Perhaps I could ask you to have a look at the charter which the Age produced.
You'll be scrupulous in reporting the news and going on and go on.
Sir, can I ask you, back in 1988...
Please, look, one thing at a time. Why don't you read out what you're supposed to have?
They shall report and interpret the news with scrupulous honesty by striving to disclose all essential facts. And by not suppressing relevant and available facts or distorting by wrong or improper emphasis.
By distorting. Now, you are deliberately distorting Terang's representation.
Let's have some evidence, Mr. Packer.
You've got any amount of it. You can look at every paper. Everybody out there looking at this television program knows full well that you, as a group, believe that Terang and I am going to run Terang.
All right,
now, that just is not true.
Alan Kennedy, would you like to take that up?
We've got, you know, you're saying Malcolm Fraser, Gough Whitlam,
former Prime Ministers, Deputy Prime Ministers are distorting the facts too. I mean, we've got two public rallies in Sydney and Melbourne. Tomorrow we deliver 2,000 letters to the ANZ Bank saying people will close their account if the bid goes through.
If you can't using the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald,
no, are they distorting the facts?
If you can't using those get 2,000 letters to give to the bank, you're not trying.
No, are they distorting? Is Malcolm Fraser and Gough Whitlam
Malcolm
distorting?
Fraser and Gough Whitlam, I don't really feel that ex-politicians have a lot of say in this. Were they changing the rules when they were there, or are they just being smart after the event?
Well, aren't they readers and of the papers? They've expressed
They may well be
concern
readers of the
about it.
papers, and they may well be under the impression that I will control Tourang. But if so, it'll be because of the reporting that you have done.
Mr. Packer, could I ask you, if you won't control Tourang, who will?
The public.
The public will control Tourang?
The public will control Tourang.
The general public?
The general public.
How will they control Tourang?
They'll own 65% of the shares.
So, and they will certainly own the majority of shares, but will they have control?
They can vote in or out anyone they like. If they own the majority of the shares, that's how directors are appointed. Surely you know that.
Mr. Packer, isn't it true that you and Conrad Black got together last year, talked about this issue? I'm taking this from Trevor Kennedy's evidence from the print tribunal. There's three versions of this story, but I assume Mr. Kennedy's got it right.
Why do you assume he's got it right?
Well, he was your chief executive. He's appointed as your chief executive to this organisation until he resigned last week.
And he was speaking under oath.
He was speaking under oath? Are you saying he was lying? Or
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, why do you assume it? I ask you a question, and I'll tell you the answer.
Well, his claim is that you met last year, you started discussing with Mr. Black the bid. You've been discussing with it for the last 8 or 9 months. You've approached various financial institutions. This is clearly a bid which has been put together by you and Mr. Black.
But nobody's queried that.
So you accept that you were the prime movers of the bid? Is that what you're saying?
No, nobody's ever queried that.
So you accept the proposition that you are the prime mover of it?
I accept the fact that I was involved in helping get the bid going.
Right.
But after the bid goes in, and surely you must understand the difference, once this company is floated, which it will be within 6 months of the bid being accepted, it will be owned by the Australian public. Conrad Black will have 20% and I'll have 15%.
And who will appoint the editors? The public?
Presumably the directors. And I'm not eligible to be a director.
Before you float, you've got to name your board, don't you? You've got to put a management in place. Well, who's going to appoint the directors of the for the public float?
Well, Sir Zilman Cowan is already there. I presume he'll have something to say about it. Sir Lawrence Street, both of these people, unsatisfactory by your standards, I suppose.
Who are they appointed by?
They are directors of Tourang.
Yes, but who appointed them to the board of Tourang? They don't have shares.
Conrad Black.
So Conrad Black is the controller of the company?
At this moment.
At this moment.
But when it goes public, he won't be. And at this moment in time, this is a company that owns nothing. Controlling this company is completely meaningless.
Did Conrad Black discuss with you?
I hate to do this, but commercial considerations require that we take a break here, but we'll be back and the debate will continue after this break. And welcome back to the debate where Mr. Packer is facing his Fairfax media critics. Now, Mr. Packer is clearly not conceding that he's going to have any influence beyond a 14.9% shareholding. What is it that you all fear about Mr. Packer?
There's a whole range of things about Tourang, but let's come back to the point that Mr. Packer is merely a passive investor. If that's so, why is Mr. Barron, who's an employee of yours, been visiting Mr. Beazley, the Minister for Communications, who has carriage of responsibility for cross-media ownership, and why has he been in secret discussions with the Australian Broadcasting Tribunal? Has he been in those discussions on your behalf? Is he an employee of Tourang? Is he an employee of yours? Or is he operating on his own behalf?
He's an employee of mine.
So, as a passive investor, your employee...
You deliberately want to misinterpret this thing again. I have said to you, I would have thought clearly, even so you could understand it, that at this stage, while Tourang is being put together, and before it owns John Fairfax, I have been one of the people involved in the structuring of Tourang. After it owns John Fairfax and Sons, I will be a passive investor of 14.9% and have no director. Now, I can't tell you that more clearly. And this is the very thing that I keep on complaining about. You don't want to listen to the facts because it doesn't suit your case.
Do you have a record of taking passive investments, Mr. Packer?
Do I have a record of taking...
Yeah.
No, I don't have a record of taking passive investments, but I don't have an opportunity often to buy into John Fairfax and Sons either.
This is a company or a company that runs a business that I think to this program, to the staff of this program, a year ago you said didn't have a future. In fact, you made a big point of it and it was reported in the Herald.
Saying what?
You said that newspapers didn't have a future. I think the point you're making was about classifieds. And here you are, 12 months later,
No, I don't think I ever said that newspapers don't have a future.
Well, that was the point you're making. I checked with your staff just beforehand. That was the point that was made.
Why didn't you check with me?
Well, you're here. I'm asking you.
I'm saying to you, I don't think I've ever said that newspapers don't have a future. Now, I'm saying to you the future may not be clear because I don't know what's going to happen. But the idea that newspapers are going to cease in one form or another is not my point of view. My point of view is that it may well be delivered on a printer over a television set. But I don't think they're going to cease to exist.
Mr. Packer, you and Conrad Black have often been, or have been described as sort of two bulls in one paddock that can't go on.
Who described us as that?
Max Walsh, I think, was one.
Oh,
a commentator.
Another intellectual genius.
Well, you mightn't like what he said, but how durable is the partnership?
I would think very durable. I would have thought that, it's become apparent, hasn't it, that we are prepared to stand up and put this bid together. Now, after that, Conrad Black will run the thing, not me. I'm very happy for Conrad Black to run it. I think Conrad Black is a very capable newspaper.
What if it doesn't work out?
Then I'll sell my shares. It's a listed company.
Do you have any sort of agreement as to how that'll
No
work?
agreements at all. None.
Why did you look overseas for a partner? Why not look in Australia if you were just interested in setting up...
Who are you suggesting?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
Well, I'm telling you, who is there in Australia I should have brought in?
Well, there's a whole range of institutions.
Who is the person who has institutions? What do institutions know about running a newspaper, for God's sake? Conrad Black is used to running a quality newspaper. Are you really suggesting there are better partners here to do that than him? If so, name one. If not, withdraw the question.
Well, I'm not going to withdraw the question.
Good
You're
idea.
saying there is nobody in Australia capable of running the Fairfax Group.
Who is better than Conrad Black at running the Fairfax Group?
Well, since you asked me, I would say the existing management of the Fairfax Group.
Well, they're the people who have allowed you to go through and distort the truth in the way that you have.
You still haven't proved this point. You've made this point
I
3
haven't
times
proved
now.
it. Everybody out there knows it. Everybody out there has been reading nothing but how I'm going to take over Fairfax's for the last 3 weeks. I don't have to prove it at all.
News
It's
Limited's
proved.
distorting the truth too. I mean, these stories appear in News Limited as well. Are they coming out of they distorting the truth too?
I would imagine if that's what they're doing, yes. The truth of the matter is News Limited don't want Conrad back as a partner either.
So this is a massive conspiracy against Kerry Packer, is it? By Channel 7, Channel 10, News Limited, Fairfax? Somehow all these journalists have combined together in a dark room to make up this view?
Well, that's your theory. I don't think it works that way.
That's the point you're really making.
No. The point I'm making is very simple. You've had a holiday down at Fairfax's for 2 years. You haven't had a boss. You haven't had anybody who's made you responsible for anything. And now all of a sudden you're saying there's going to be some people come in here and run this place like a newspaper.
Well,
and we don't want them.
The circulation of the newspapers, all the newspapers in the group have gone up, and the company's never been as profitable. It's a pretty good holiday.
How do you mean the company's never been as profitable? What money did it make last year as a matter of interest? I thought it lost.
Well, it loses money because of the debt that Warwick settled with, but the
that's-
operating profit was
that's
127
the reality
million.
of life, is the debt you've got there. Your company is not profitable, it's in receivership. Surely as a journalist you know the difference, don't you?
I know the difference.
Mr. Packer, these are 2 of the most profitable newspapers in the world. Rupert Murdoch has said it, Conrad Black has said it.
They've said that they're 2 great newspapers.
No, they've talked profitable newspapers. Some people claim they're in the top 5.
You know, any time that you've got to go and pay $1.2 billion to get something out of the black, it's not that, out of the red, it's not that profitable. Now, I don't mind what everybody says, and I'm answering your question. Your question is there a conspiracy? By the Age and by the Sydney Morning Herald? Undoubtedly.
No, I said News Limited.
News Limited don't want Conrad Black there as a partner.
So you think they're party to it as well?
I don't think they're interested in having strong competition. I think they'd much prefer to see you going on the way you are.
And Gough Whitlam, Malcolm Fraser, they're a party
Gough
to it
Whitlam
too.
and Malcolm Fraser have both been dismissed by the Australian public for their past imperfect performances anyway.
So they're not entitled to a view.
Of course they're entitled to an opinion. But so am I entitled to an opinion, and I'm entitled to the truth. And you, as a group, have not represented the truth.
Do you agree that you do interfere in your publications?
No, I don't.
Why did Mr Kennedy say that? I can read
I
you
don't
the
know.
extract.
Why don't you ask all the editors? There's plenty of them about. Why don't you find out how many times I have
Well, there's
interfered?
plenty of... I can just read you. This is Mr Kennedy under oath at the print media inquiry. From time to time, things went into the bulletin that I probably would have preferred did not go in. He was asked, do you mean that they went in at his request? That's your request. Yes, he wanted to get them in, and so they were put into the bulletin.
I've got news for you. There's lots of things that go into the bulletin that I don't want to go in there too.
No, that's not the point. I'm saying,
Well,
do
yes,
you
the point.
interfere with your publications?
By and
Simple
large,
question.
no. Let me be perfectly clear with you. With my publications, I have the right to find out and see what is going to go into them. Now, I've said that the wrong way. In truth, I look at them all in retrospect. I don't look at anything going into the publication. But I will talk to people after the event and say, why have you done this? Why has it been handled this way? And the reason I do it is because I want people to be able to test what they can do.
Specifically, could I ask you, did you know about the Mrs Hewson interview before it went to air?
Did I know about the Mrs Hewson story in the Woman's Weekly? The answer is no.
Did you know about the 60
I found
Minutes?
out about the Hewson interview 2 days, 3 days, Monday or Tuesday, whatever day it was.
Okay, I just warn you that we are unfortunately really running out of time. Just a couple of closing questions, please.
Mr Packer, do you agree that you come to this sort of bid with closed hands, that you've had a record of avoiding regulation?
No, I do not.
Why did the Broadcasting Tribunal say in June that your scheme with 2UE was a deliberate, a flagrant breach of the ownership limits?
Well,
Okay,
you
Mr.
know,
Packer.
let's be very quick about that. I'm the person who sold 2UE. I'm the person who got rid of 2UE. It sat here in this company for 4 years illegally held, and nobody did anything. I'm the one who got rid of it. I didn't make up the scheme. Allen and Hemsley are the people responsible for saying, this is the way to handle this till you can sell it.
But you're
All right,
lawyers.
look, I'm sorry, but I really am going to have to interrupt you. We really are out of time. I do thank you for coming in. We do thank the Friends of Fairfax spokesman Alan Kennedy, the Sydney Morning Herald's Tom Burton and Ken Davidson of the Melbourne Age. We will be back after the break.